London, 1653. The city was a living, breathing entity of grime and fog, a perpetual twilight woven from coal smoke and the lingering unease of a recently vanquished plague. The disease itself might have retreated, but the fear lingered, a chilling draught that seeped into the very foundations of the city's stone buildings and the hearts of its inhabitants. It was a city perpetually on edge, where whispers carried weight and shadows held secrets. In this atmosphere of muted terror, Lisa existed on the periphery, a ghost in her own life. Her shyness was a formidable barrier, a self-imposed exile from the bustling heart of London. Yet, within her carefully constructed routine, she found a fragile comfort. Her days revolved around her worn sketchbook, the steadfast friendship of Anna and her husband, Jacob, and the quiet solitude of her cramped lodgings. She was a creative soul, painstakingly capturing the gritty details of London life in her sketches, finding a stark, melancholic beauty where others saw only decay and despair. Her world was small, meticulously contained, but it was safe, hers. A sanctuary built from routine and guarded by quietude. Then, one rain-soaked evening, as the cobblestones glistened under the flickering gas lamps, a crack appeared in that fragile peace. Glancing down a shadowy alley, a place where darkness clung like a shroud, Lisa saw him, a figure cloaked in black, his form distorted by the swirling mist. A grotesque beak of a mask obscured his face, transforming him into a caricature of death itself. A plague doctor. He was a specter of a fear she thought she'd buried with the last of the plague victims, a walking nightmare resurrected from the city's collective trauma. Was he real? Or just a phantom conjured by the city's morbid imagination, a manifestation of her own deep-seated anxieties? She tried to dismiss it, to rationalize it as a trick of the light, but a seed of dread had been planted, burrowing deep into her subconscious, its tendrils wrapping around her heart. Back in her small, sparsely furnished flat, the seed bloomed into full-blown terror. The sense of security she had so carefully cultivated crumbled around her. Her door stood ajar, the splintered wood a jagged wound in the frame, framing a scene of chaos. Her meager belongings were scattered like fallen leaves in a storm, her precious teapot lay shattered on the floor, and her beloved sketches, the very essence of her being, were ripped and strewn across the floor like discarded souls. And pinned to her shattered writing desk, the place where she poured her heart onto paper, by a gleaming knife that reflected the flickering candle light, a blood-stained note delivered a chilling message: "I've been watching you for some time now, Lisa. I know what you did. I'll be back for you." The words were scrawled in a jagged, unsettling script, each letter a tiny stab wound. Her blood ran cold, a glacial stream freezing her veins. What had she done? She was quiet, unassuming, harmless. She kept to herself, rarely venturing beyond her small circle of friends. Who was hunting her, and why? What dark secret did they believe she possessed? The questions swirled in her mind, a vortex of fear threatening to consume her. Panic drove her to Anna and Jacob. Anna, with her boundless love and carefree spirit, was a beacon of light in Lisa's often gloomy world. She would do anything for her friends, offering unwavering support and a comforting presence. And Jacob, the strong and handsome blacksmith, exuded a protective aura that offered solace and a sense of security. His presence was a bulwark against the encroaching darkness. They welcomed her without question, their small, cheerful home a sanctuary against her mounting fear. For 3 days, she clung to their normalcy, immersing herself in the comforting rhythm of their lives, hoping the image of the plague doctor would fade into a nightmare she desperately wanted to forget. She helped Anna with her chores, listened to Jacob's boisterous stories from the forge, and tried to convince herself that everything would be all right. Anna, ever the optimist, convinced herself the threat had passed. It was likely just a prank, Lisa, a cruel one, but nothing more. You can't let fear cage you. You have to live your life, or this city will swallow you whole. She urged Lisa to return home, to reclaim her space and her independence. Naively, Lisa agreed, believing the danger was indeed behind her, a figment of her overactive imagination. This seemingly kind act, born of good intentions, was, unknowingly, a step into a labyrinth of fear. Back in her flat, the silence was deafening, amplified by the weight of her fear. The familiar creaks and groans of the old building now sounded like menacing whispers. She tried to sketch, to lose herself in the familiar strokes of charcoal on paper, but the haunting image of the plague doctor loomed, distorting her lines, poisoning her inspiration. The figure's masked face seemed to mock her from the blank page. And then, a different kind of unease began to stir within her, a slow-burning ember of guilt and desire. Beneath the surface of their close friendship, an undeniable, forbidden attraction to Jacob blossomed within Lisa. It was a treacherous, unwelcome longing, a betrayal of Anna's unwavering kindness and trust. The thought of Jacob's strong arms around her, his gentle touch, filled her with a mixture of shame and longing. One evening, while Anna was away visiting her ailing mother in the countryside, weakness overcame her. The loneliness, the fear, and the pent-up desire proved too much to bear. She succumbed to temptation, and a brief, illicit affair ignited between her and Jacob. The stolen moments were filled with a desperate passion, a fleeting escape from the darkness that threatened to engulf them. The guilt was immediate and crushing, a heavy weight on her conscience. Jacob, tormented by his own transgression, burdened by the weight of betrayal, confessed he was going to tell Anna everything. He couldn't live with the lie, the guilt eating away at his soul. Horrified, Lisa pleaded with him, begging him to reconsider. The thought of losing Anna's friendship, of shattering her perfect world, was unbearable. The consequences of their actions would be devastating, ripping apart the fabric of their lives. But Jacob was resolute. He couldn't live with the lie any longer, the deception poisoning their relationship. Rejected and terrified, driven by a desperate need to protect her only friend, she was cast out into the London night, the rain washing away her tears, but not her shame. She was alone, adrift in the city's unforgiving embrace, haunted by her actions and consumed by guilt. As she walked home, the plague doctor reappeared. Closer this time. In the darkness of the back alley, his silhouette was sharp and distinct, a sinister figure lurking in the shadows. He didn't move, didn't speak, his presence a silent accusation. Lisa, consumed by guilt and fear, her mind teetering on the edge of madness, snapped. She screamed, a raw, primal sound that echoed through the narrow street, a desperate cry for help and a challenge to the darkness that surrounded her. Leave me alone. What do you want? She lunged forward, towards the phantom, fury momentarily eclipsing her terror. But as always, he vanished, melting into the shadows as if he were nothing more than a figment of her imagination, leaving only the rain and the echoing sound of her own desperate cry. Unbeknownst to Lisa, her defiant act had unforeseen consequences. Later that night, as Anna and Jacob, struggling to reconcile after such betrayal, prepared for bed, a sickening thud echoed through their small house. A blood-soaked note, identical to the one Lisa had received, was hammered into their door. I know the truth. The reckoning is at hand. Their peaceful world, like Lisa's, had been irrevocably shattered, the foundations of their relationship undermined by deceit and fear. A ferocious storm raged over London, mirroring the turmoil within Anna and Jacob's home. The wind howled, the rain lashed against the windows, and the thunder echoed the angry words exchanged within. They confronted the truth. The confession of their betrayal had opened fresh wounds. The air was thick with accusations, regret, and the bitter taste of betrayal. Their argument was punctuated by the sickening crack of splintering wood. The door burst open, revealing the horrifying figure of the plague doctor, a long, gleaming blade dripping in the dim light, his masked face a symbol of impending doom. Anna, fueled by righteous fury and the instinct to protect her home and her husband, fought with a ferocity Jacob never suspected she possessed. She defended her home, her love, her sanity, against the encroaching darkness. The struggle was desperate, brutal, a chaotic dance of survival in the cramped confines of their home. Finally, with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, Anna struck a decisive blow. Her fist connected with the plague doctor's mask, shattering it into fragments, revealing the face beneath. The revelation was earth-shattering, a truth so horrifying it threatened to unravel their sanity. Stumbling backwards, unmasked and unconscious, was none other than Lisa. Her usually shy and gentle features were contorted into a mask of rage, her eyes glazed over with a terrifying emptiness. It was then that the horrifying truth began to dawn. Lisa suffered from a severe dissociative identity disorder, a condition brought to the surface by the extreme stress and trauma she had endured. The figure she had seen in the shadows, the author of the threatening notes, the terrifying plague doctor, was a manifestation of her fractured psyche, a dark alter ego born from years of repressed fear, unspoken desires, and the overwhelming weight of her secrets. The trauma of her life had split her mind into separate entities, each with its own motivations and desires. Lisa, the woman who sought refuge, was herself the source of the terror. The monster they feared was not an external threat, but a darkness that festered within their own circle, a chilling reminder of the fragility of the human mind. Now, confined to a stark cell in Bedlam, a place of shrieks and shadows, she battles the hidden demons within, forever haunted by the duality of her nature, forever screaming that it wasn't her. The city of London, steeped in its own darkness, its history marred by plague and despair, had birthed a monster from within, a chilling reminder that the most terrifying threats often come from the shadows we carry inside ourselves, shadows that sometimes take on a life of their own, consuming us from the inside out. The plague may have left London, but the darkness within remained, festering in the hearts and minds of its inhabitants.